Good afternoon, good early evening. How is everyone today? We're glad you're here. My name is Reverend Veronica Johnson. I am Outreach Director for Faith in Place and grateful that you are joining us this evening for the Tree Canopy and Workforce Community Grant Opportunity. Um, we have with us today Topacio, who will now share some instructions for those who need the Spanish translation.
Buenas tardes, gracias por venir a esta junta de hoy. Tendremos interpretación en español disponible. Si necesitan de este servicio, podrán accesarlo después de este mensaje. Podrán encontrar el globo abajo de su pantalla, un globo que dice interpretación. Si no logran encontrar el globo abajo de su pantalla, puede que esté bajo los tres puntitos que dice more abajo, o si están en dispositivo móvil, arriba de su pantalla, pueden ver los tres puntos que dicen more. Ahí pueden encontrar el globo de interpretación, seleccionar interpretación y seleccionan el lenguaje de español después de este mensaje. Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have a lot to cover in this hour. A lot of resources will be shared with you. I promise you, you will be able to access it all on our website, and our communication staff is also here and will be dropping links in the chat. You will also communicate via chat. So, Faith in Place, we are people of faith and justice protecting the earth, and not only us, but our network of green teams. Our mission is to support and empower communities of faith driven to create a healthier environment. At Faith in Place, we provide free resources, education, networking, free green team coaching, and also actionable opportunities, fostering a sustainable future together. We are the proud Illinois, Indiana, and Wisconsin affiliate of the national organization Interfaith Power and Light. And again, we're grateful for your presence today. Again, I am Veronica Johnson. I'm Outreach Director, and I am approaching my third anniversary this month. So today we are talking about building tree canopy and how we can make our communities greener. And as you know, with a particular opportunity for you to apply for grants for trees for your community. So as an icebreaker, do you have a special connection with a tree in your life? If you want to drop something in the chat about a special opportunity for a tree or special memory or thoughts about trees in your life, feel free to drop those in the chat. I just brought my chat up again so that I could see anything anyone puts. Okay, Dale, a pink ivory tree. Thank you for sharing. I had a beautiful tree in front of my home as I grew up. Beautiful, huge elm tree. Thank you, Bonnie. On the way to your friend's farm. Wonderful. Thank you all. We see maple trees. We see oak trees. Big oak trees in the front. Trees with swings. Wonderful. Apple trees. So grateful you all are sharing. We are all here because we love trees. We know they make us healthier, and they are just a wonderful part of our lives. And so thank you again for being here and for sharing about those special trees in your lives. So we have an amazing opportunity to add more trees. It really is an amazing opportunity that Faith in Place has to help our network receive resources to plant trees. And so let's just talk about some of the benefits of trees, just in case there's someone here who's not convinced that more trees are necessary and positive. So let's see. Pardon me as I try to navigate. So some benefits. There we go. We know that one of the benefits is cleaner air. I like to say that trees scrub the air. They filter airborne pollutants, can lower dust levels by up to 42%, Trees increase safety. There is research that shows that well-maintained parks with trees reduce gun violence in communities. We know that trees do provide shade, tree canopy, which can reduce heat-related illnesses caused by heat. Improved cardiovascular health in urban areas. So there's certainly health benefits, physical health benefits. There's also mental health benefits. The time in nature reduces stress. That living near trees can reduce depression. The trees can help our brain function, including enhancing our learning and thinking abilities. The green space also helps enhance our memories. So there's just a lot of benefits. I think a lot of us knew in general that trees are good for us and good for our communities, but maybe not to this level of detail. Energy saving, that a young healthy tree can cool the air like 10 room-size air conditioners operating most of the day, 20 hours a day. And the trees can be placed strategically so that they reduce the need for air conditioning inside of buildings by providing shade, cover for those buildings and making them less hot from the sun, uh, thereby reducing energy bills. The economic benefit, again, the trees can reduce the annual heating and cooling costs for typical residents by 8 to 12%, and also increase property values. And so the different resources that have given us this data, this one from Friends of Tree Equity, Illinois. That trees can prevent flooding. I think many people believe trees cause flooding, but some of that can be dependent on where the tree is located. But there's also certainly data that trees can help manage stormwater, reducing the volume and the speed of the water entering the drainage systems. And then for example, over 20 years, one maple tree can intercept 27,000 gallons of rainfall and avoid that water from entering the system. And so help avoid that. So again, wonderful tree benefits. A few inspirational stories here of houses of worship that have engaged in tree planting. The first one, First Presbyterian Church of Danville, and this is a tree member reflecting on one of their tree planting projects. The project is concerned with improving air quality by planting more trees, particularly native species, because natives thrive rather than just exist. And so some of you may have opportunity to learn what trees are native to your area and focus on those in particular. That same project, Reverend Ann Schwartz, planting trees is a holy and hopeful act. They provide refuge for birds and animals, shade for the neighborhood, and beauty and oxygen for us all. We know that many faith traditions have trees as symbolic in their sacred text. That reminds me of that. Shelbyville, Community Garden. First Presbyterian Church in Shelbyville started a community garden in collaboration with their green team and with other local community organizations. And that garden has become a beacon of hope and health, offering nutrition and life skill education while supplying fresh, sustainable grown food sustainably grown food, to local food pantries. So they donate food every year, 1,000 pounds of produce to First United Methodist Food Pantry, making a difference in their lives. There was a time when they had dreams to have more fruit trees, and they didn't think they'd be able to do that. But with a generous donation, they were able to plant 14 fruit trees, including apple and peach trees. And so think about, as part of this opportunity, that you can certainly obtain fruit trees, nut trees, trees that maybe you've wanted to have and haven't had access to or the opportunity to get. That's just an inspirational story to share that these things are certainly possible. Let's dive into the practical side of tree planting. So when we talk about trees, it can be somewhat complex. People have different concerns and opinions about trees. Here are some very common tree concerns. that trees attract rodents and insects, that it's quite costly for planting, maintenance, or removal. The trees can cause property damage, sidewalks and buildings. You may have also heard that trees increase allergies, that there's quite a bit of labor needed to care for trees, that leaves cause people a problem in the fall, and that trees can provide cover for crime or block the view. And depending on people's circumstances, you know, people can have had some of these, may have had some of these experiences. Often an experience becomes a general belief about trees, and that should not happen, because these things don't always have to be negative or not always true in every situation. But these are concerns that we often hear. So we can actually discuss addressing some of these tree concerns. Um, First, regarding the pavement, that some tree species can actually extend the life of pavement by reducing the heating and cooling of the asphalt, again, by providing tree canopy. Any concerns about cost? This grant covers the cost of purchasing and planting trees, as well as the maintenance for the first 5 years of growth. You can select trees properly and plant them properly so that they don't cause the problems such as the risk to the building foundation, the sidewalks, and maybe even the insect issues. You can also select low pollen and no non-allergenic trees. And you can thoughtfully place trees so that they don't block view in particular areas where that line of sight is important. So there's always a way to kind of navigate what the common issues are. And I appreciate this part of the presentation because often we just hear the negativity, and there are people who, whose whole communities don't have enough trees and they actually like it that way. And we really need to begin to combat some of the negativity around trees. They really do make our communities healthier. What are some of the pros and cons you have heard? Let's start in the chat with the cons, and then we'll end on the positive. So again, I'm looking in the chat. What are some of the things that are negative that you've heard about trees before? Anyone share anything in the chat? And I do see some questions. We will get back to those questions towards the end, Q&A. And you can, I see this first one, you can plant trees on the church property. Plant all the same species, they get disease, and all the trees have to be cut down. Okay, that's a negative that you have heard. They eventually fall. Okay, trees are sometimes planted in regions where the native plants are grasses and shrubs. Okay. I've heard that trees cause people's basements to flood and they therefore get those trees removed. Um, Again, there are the negatives. What are some of the positives? What are the pros of trees? And we've talked about some of those. Okay, I see that again as another con. Trees die, they cost money. Oxygen. Trees give us what we need to breathe. Absolutely. And when you learn how much they cleanse the air, that's very important. Shade. If we believe global warming is happening and that we're having warmer days and heat waves, trees provide that canopy that can help that temperature be regulated or be less by as much as 10 degrees lower than otherwise. So providing that shade and that cooling, cleaning the air. Really just imagine not having trees and not having those benefits. And we know how important it is to have trees. Thank you for participating. Toolbar again. Go back to the presentation. All right. So some other positives, and this is from the Arbor Day Foundation. Trees play a critical role in creating healthier, safer, and more connected communities. As we have said, they clean our air, filter our water, slow storm surge and flooding in our cities, and they provide shade. That's where I got that 10 degrees from. All right. We talked about this. I'm sorry. I think I went backwards. My apologies. I'm catching up. My apologies. All right. Here we go. Now, the reason you're here, Faith in Place will distribute 65 to 85 grants up to $30,000 to community organizations and houses of worship within EJ communities across Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana. And so that's a lot of grants. That's a lot of money. We are anxious to begin to receive applications for these funds, and that is why you are here today. So again, thank you for coming. These grants are intended for planting and maintaining the trees on the properties of the houses of worship or the nonprofits over a 4-year period for urban forestry workforce projects and or a combination of both. We will go through this in detail. And again, please know that everything that I present is included on our website. That link will be dropped in the chat. You will be able to even access these slides. And so let's go through this. Community organizations must be 501c3s. Houses of worship, you do not have to prove 501c3 status. We're accepting all houses of worship. But if you are not a house of worship, you need to show that you are a 501c3. You must be located in a CGES census tract area, and we will show that. I will demonstrate that in a moment, how you determine if you are located in the communities that are receiving these grants. We'll look at that in a moment. If you're an organization with a fiscal sponsor, the sponsor's address must be in a CGES community. The organization must own the property where the trees will be planted or be able to get written permission from the owner to plant the trees. And so the location of the organization and the location where the trees will go must be in a CGES community. And again, we will demonstrate that in a moment. Your organization's employees must have I-9 forms on record. And these are government funds, so there's multiple guidelines we must follow, and that is one of them. Okay. So let's demonstrate the CGES map. I will show you what that is. So this is a climate and economic justice screening tool. Okay, this is from, as you see, an official website of the US government. It is a screening tool that allows you to put an address in and learn information about that location, including whether or not it falls in a climate and economic justice community. Okay, so we're going to test 2 addresses. This is one address of one house of worship that interacts with Faith in Place in Vernon Hills, Illinois. You can see the address is in the search. It's Congregation Shalom. And one of the cool things about this tool, you put the address in, it maps the address, and you can see it maps all kinds of things around that location. And then it also gives demographic information. You can see these other indices over here. There's information on climate change, energy, health, housing, etc. But it also gives us an answer, actually, right away. Is this area, is this address identified as disadvantaged? You can see the word no right there. That is the answer to the question to whether or not this house of worship with this address can or qualifies to receive this grant. It's as simple as using this tool to get that answer. And so, unfortunately, if the answer is no, this particular house of worship cannot apply for this grant Faith in Place has other tree resources, so we will also encourage folks to stay in touch with us about other resources, but this particular grant, they cannot. There is another address we will try. This is 3622 West Douglas. It's a church on the west side of Chicago. I've already put the address in the search bar, and now I'm going to click the search here. And you can see it's mapping that address. And if I scroll here to look, did it give me the answer yet? Let me click it one more time. There we go. All right. It is identified as disadvantaged. And again, if you click through some of these other indices, you will see more of the indices that are being tracked and shared through this tool. Some of it is around, as you can see, expected agricultural loss rate, projected flood risk, and it's got the different percentiles. And the way the tool was constructed, it's looking at all of those indices and making a decision about whether this is a disadvantaged community. You can see here for energy, there's some high level of energy costs, particulates in the air, etc. Right? So for your address, you can look at those details and really get engrossed in them. And that's not a bad idea. But for this grant, the tool actually gives you a pretty quick answer, yes or no. That yes or no is what tells us whether or not you can apply for and receive this grant. If you get a no, again, you can be in touch with us. We can share other potential resources. And that's not against all our regions, but we will at least check that. But for this particular grant, this yes or no answer is the answer as to whether or not you can receive the grant. The link to this tool will be dropped in the chat. I'm going to return to the presentation. This is part of the application process, right, to determine whether or not the community, the location of the organization, and where the trees will be planted fall within a CGES community. And again, we were looking at Congregation Shalom and Stone Temple Missionary Baptist Church. Congregation or Shalom was a no, and Stone Temple was a yes. Again, you should receive the link. You can put your address in, you can get a quick answer right away. I know that may cause some questions for some of you. We can check questions towards the end. If you received a no, there's often a question about, well, can my organization plant them somewhere else? It still checks your organization's address. And if you're not located in a CGES community, the answer is then no. Okay. So the very first step is to determine if you're eligible using that tool. Okay. There's also a full application toolkit, which we will now go through. Again, this toolkit is available as a downloadable PDF on our website. I'm just going to walk through it fairly quickly and kind of show you what is here, because it is the tool that you should use as you are preparing your application. First is the detailed rubric that is used to evaluate your proposal. And you can see the different decision points about whether your goals are clear and defined and realistic, whether there's a good chance of success, whether it builds the urban forestry workforce. Projects with a workforce component do receive extra points, as you can see in the rubric. So think about a workforce component. We'll say a little bit more about that later. Does the project demonstrate that there will be environmental benefits? Is it a cost-effective budget? Okay, so you've got the rubric there for how your proposal will be scored. This toolkit tells you how to build your application. Certainly the applicant's information. Notice this is the organization's EIN number, but also there's another unique entity identifier number, a UEI number. And if you don't have that number, there's instructions on how to attain that number. Oh, sorry about that. Just wanted to make it a little bit larger. Okay. You have to share information about your personnel, the executive officer, name and contact title and contact information, committee members who will oversee grant implementation, and others. Again, you'll receive this and you can read all of this in detail. Then there is the project proposal with a description of the project, the main goals, the funds you are requesting, again, up to $30,000. So here's where you can share the project details, basically the who, what, where, when, and how of your project plan. And again, the toolkit walks you through each of these questions and what you should answer and how many characters you should provide. There are a lot of other reference documents. I will go through most of them in a moment. So you will go through the who, what, when, where, and how of your project. The toolkit also provides how you should structure your budget with a budget template, which we will again look at in a moment, and a description that describes your budget. Okay, so again, this is a 10-page document you can download and you will be able to use it as you prepare your application. Okay. Moving forward with the presentation. So you're here, you now have learned what needs to be in your application. And as you begin to think about your project, you're going to think about what to plant. Well, there's guidelines on that. Tree size, 1-inch to 2-inch caliper, which has to do with the diameter, if you will, of the tree trunk. Oh, 1 second. So about 12 to 14 feet tall. Okay, so a tree sapling is where you should begin. The tree types. There are a lot of tree species that you can consider, but you should get some guidance on what is best for your location and non-invasives only. So you can see, and again, you will receive the slide deck. This is a live link here to review the allowable tree species. So as I click on that, you will see that there is a full list of recommended trees. And again, you should get some guidance on what is appropriate for your area. But you can see here, fruit and nut-bearing trees. This is a 12-page document of trees. And it includes the common name, the genus and species, the common name, the mature height and width, drought tolerant, moisture tolerant, salt tolerant, and planting considerations. So as you make plans for your trees and what types of trees you're going to plant, please reference this document and include that in your proposal. Okay, so that's exciting, hopefully, that you have a lot of options there, and you certainly can get some fruit-bearing and nut-bearing trees, as well as many other kinds. What can you charge to the grant? Excellent question, because this is what should be in your budget. So what in addition to trees? We also have here as a live link, and it's also on our website, edible tree planting supplies. So let's see what that says. You can include in your budget anything that is in the permitted tree planting supplies column. Shovels, rakes, mulch, tree staking supplies, fencing, a wheelbarrow, hand pruners. So you've got some tools there, some bags, some gardening gloves, yardstick, bucket, soil knife, irrigation system, as long as it's not cost prohibitive, and other tools and supplies. What should you not include and the grant will not pay for? Garden benches, paving stones, garden lights and decorations, and a lawn. Okay, so there's quite a bit you can include, and you can notice the more decorative items, and then something that is more generally used, a lawnmower, cannot be included. Okay. Again, you have access to that document and you should reference that. Eligible activities. So because the grant is not only purchasing items, but the actual activity of planting and maintaining, you should also reference this document of activities that can be funded. Employee time and fringe benefits to plant and maintain the trees according with the project plan can be included in the budget. Contractor work to support planting and maintaining. Stipends for young people or for community members to plant and maintain. Purchasing of the allowable trees, purchasing of the allowable supplies. So again, in addition to purchasing the materials that we covered in the previous document, here is the time to do the work, whether it's employees, our youth or volunteers from the community, as well as the time and the action of purchasing the items. Okay, so again, two important documents. And then another important document right here, review the budget template. So I'm gonna pull up the budget template. Oh, did I jump all the way back, you all? My apologies. The toolbar. Difficult to navigate, my apologies. All right, trying to click this budget template. Because of the toolbar, it's making it difficult. Okay, so if one of my teammates can pull the budget template, I will bring this down. Maybe I can get it if I do it this way. Second. You got it, Kira? There we go. Thank you. My apologies. All right. So you again will have access to this budget template. It shows you an example budget. You can see the two tabs at the bottom. One is the template where you'll actually fill in your budget. Then the next tab is an example budget. You can see the expense category, which includes personnel, fringe benefits, supplies, contractual, scroll down a little bit more, and other. So you have direct costs, indirect costs, which is automatically calculated, which will then give you a total. And then on the other side of the page, you can see where you can put some of the detail for the expenses, the items that you're going to purchase. And that is then the supply category. Okay. So you will receive that template and that example. Thank you, Kira. Let me navigate once again. Me and Canva. All right. Go. That. Okay. Here's where we are. All right. Thank you for your patience. All right. So we want to make sure that you have all the resources you need to be successful. And so there's quite a bit around planting trees and maintaining trees. This is referencing a tutorial, a 10-minute tutorial. I believe our team is dropping that in the chat from our friends at Open Lands that can help you with best practices for planting trees. So you should certainly, in preparation to do this project, check out the resources that give you guidance on how to plant trees. We just want to share a few tips with you. First of all, most of you probably know that you need to contact the city and the officials for planting, and there is the standard number of 1-800-258-0808 for underground utilities, okay, for making sure that you can dig and making sure that it's safe to dig. Testing the soil is important, particularly if you are planting edible fruit and nut trees. Conduct a soil test. Include that in your budget. Preventing damage to paved areas and walkways. So there are ways to prevent roots from lifting the pavement by planting no closer than 2 feet from paved areas and preferably at least 5 feet. Okay, so there's ways to prevent some of those challenges. Do not use fertilizer or compost for your tree is another tip for maintenance. As you develop your maintenance plan, again, this has to be in your proposal that you're demonstrating that you know how to maintain what you plant. Another tip is make sure you have a watering plan in there. Plan to water your tree 15 gallons per week during the growing season for 3 years. So you should be including in your proposal that you have staff or someone who's going to take care of the watering. The proposal should demonstrate that what you plant will be well cared for. Plan on using 25% of your budget for tree planting and 75% for maintenance. Okay, so maintenance is the majority of your budget. And make sure you use the template and check out the example. Additional tips for your proposal. Incorporate a workforce component for a higher application score. We are excited about this component where you can hire individuals who have been formerly incarcerated or others in the community who may be unemployed, who can begin to learn tree keeping and learn how to do this work. If you can include that in your proposal as a workforce component, it receives a higher score and more likely to be accepted. We have a partner who can work with your organization to share about tree career opportunities, and that can be built into your workforce component. So that information is on our website. So let's now think about submitting the application. The first step, and I demonstrated the CGES map. There's also an eligibility questionnaire that you complete, again, to be sure that you are eligible. And then once you complete that questionnaire and it demonstrates that you are eligible, you will receive a link to our grant portal. And that grant portal is where you will submit your application. Application deadline is November 21st. The portal is live now, and so you could complete that questionnaire right away and demonstrate that you do qualify, and it gives you access to the portal. Again, applications due November 21st. We will review those applications and announce those who will receive the grant by January 15th. Okay, and then if you are one of the ones who receives the grant, you will get a contract to sign and we will disperse funds for you to get started. Okay, and then we will have a process of reporting where you will report every month using a short form with our grants management coordinator, Angie Wolford. So she will be in touch with all who receive grants and make sure you understand the reporting process and additional funding being released as you report. There is a website resource page where all of this information is included. I believe it's been dropped in the chat. I'm going to click on it here as well. Again, this is the Faith in Place website, Tree Canopy, Workforce, and Community Grant. All of those documents that I shared are included here, as well as a description of the overall project. Okay. And so the eligibility questionnaire is available as well. And you can go through the toolkit, and the link to the CGES map screening tool is here as well. Okay. Okay, so everything you need is on that website. All right, we've got to the place where we will field your questions and do our best to answer. There is a frequently asked questions section on the website. And along those lines, because this is a federal grant, we have to give the same amount of assistance to everyone. And so the way we are ultimately addressing questions as they come, you know, even for people who have attended this in the past, is we're continuing to update the frequently asked questions. And so you may ask a question later that someone's already asked. If you check our frequently asked questions, you will be able to find the answers. So let me field a few questions here.
So Veronica, I'm happy to just tell you what some of the questions are. We've had several questions about whether you are required to plant trees at the church or nonprofit, or whether you can plant somewhere that's not the church or nonprofit, for example, on a municipal plot or on a different plot. One person had a question about their nonprofit provides affordable housing. Can the trees be planted on those properties that they build?
Thank you for that question. And so it all comes back to that CGES tool for two locations: your main location address, your organization's address. It must receive a yes when you use that CGES tool, and the location where you want to plant. In addition, you also need written permission from those who own that second location. So that's like 3 checks. First, your own organization's address, the address of the other location where you want to plant, and written permission to use that location. Okay.
Great. Also had a question about whether you can use this grant to remove existing invasives or safety concern trees.
That's a good question. I believe, and maybe Kira, you can confirm my answer. Go ahead.
Sure. On our frequently asked questions, this is one of our responses, and it's a little bit technical, but the tree removal would need to be a very small part of your proposal, and then trees would need to be replanted at least a 2-to-1 ratio of those removed. So the priority is to plant trees, not remove them. So if that does need to be a part of the proposal, you simply need to make sure that the proposal includes a 2-to-1 ratio of any trees removed.
Thank you, Kira.
Let's see. I think We did have one question that I'm not sure that we are equipped to answer, which is there a way to appeal or be added to this CGIS list? Do you happen to know that, Veronica?
So it certainly is an engagement with the Department of Agriculture, I believe, right? And we had this question before. It's bigger than this project, right? It's about how your community is being evaluated based on data about the community. And so that's bigger than obviously the scope of this project. But if you feel like your community is not represented properly in that tool, it is being in touch possibly with your elected officials, and just say, hey, do you know that they're showing us a certain way in our community that doesn't seem to be accurate? And so that's what I would suggest. But it is certainly beyond the scope of trying to qualify for this. We're really going to stick with the tool, and I don't think you can get a change fast enough because it is part of the US government.
Right. Great. So there's one other question that I think was a good one. If our church's congregation do not own homes, where would you recommend we plant trees? So that's a clarification question, I think.
Absolutely. And so trees can be planted on the property of the house of worship. Or if there is another location in the area, you simply have to get permission for that location to plant trees. So there may be many other options as you're creative and thinking about the community, but just know it'll have to fall within CGIS, and you have to have permission. And I'm seeing that Jenny put a note in the chat about contacting the Council of Environmental Quality. She linked the form there if you have feedback on the tool. Thanks, Jenny. I see a question here. Can someone help consult on trees that would be helpful on brownfield sites for phytoremediation? So there are tree organizations that certainly have more expertise than Faith in Place. Open Lands is the first one that comes to mind that we are actually in partnership with to an extent for this project. And I would consult Open Lands, or maybe one of the arboretums, a local arboretum. In Chicago, we're near Morton Arboretum, but contacting tree specialists for any particular questions like that. Any other questions? I see, is the tree list searchable? I see someone responded. Okay. Someone asked, can you clarify what indirect costs are? So the budget tool is going to, and the application resources are really going to list out all of the different components for the budget. I'm just going to refer you back to that tool. Certainly there's the cost, the direct cost of the things you're purchasing, and compensating those who are doing the work. There is that section in the grant where it automatically calculates indirect costs. At the moment, I can't respond to that, but maybe we'll add that to frequently asked questions, and you can check our website. I'll note that question. Okay, let's see.
We just got one more question. Is there some flexibility if we apply with a certain list of trees, then get granted and do a soil test and learn that we should adjust our plans?
Good question. And I'm imagining frequently asked questions may have something about changing the plan part way. Again, those who receive the grant will be working very closely with our grants manager. And before you decide to do something different than what was proposed, being in touch with our grants manager, her name is Angie. And even once the grants are awarded, I'm sure there will be more detailed answers around what if we want to change course, right? But just know there will be a grants manager who will be the point of contact for all who receive a grant and will be able to answer your questions as you go. Okay. And Kira just put grants at faithandplace.org where you can send other questions that will be responded to by Angie. All right. Let's see. How many folks are going to write a proposal? I see. Let me make sure I can see you all. Hands up. We got some proposals coming. I saw you, Apostle Johnson. Thank you. Wonderful. Again, we have 65 to 85 grants, and that range is obviously because some will be closer to 30,000 than others. But we're excited. The proposals have begun to come in. Attending a session is a requirement, and so you met the first requirement by attending. So thank you. Check out that CGES tool and get started. Always check back to our frequently asked questions. But again, there's so much documentation that's available that will help you through this process. And then consulting tree specialists, arboretums, or open lands if you need any detailed help with trees in particular. Okay. Well, thank you all so much. We appreciate your presence and your interest. I'm excited that so many trees are going to be planted in communities that need not only the shade and the help with water, but also to provide edibles, food and nuts and other wonderful things. So we're excited. Thank you so much. You all are welcome. Thank you.